Okay, that's great. So just kind of probing into a little bit more on this concept of tilt. Okay, so can you make maybe a couple of examples of where you've had a situation of um, you wanted to kind of dig in a little bit more and felt that putting someone in tilt, as you describe it, is the right way to go. Give me maybe one or two examples of that.
Right. Well, by the way, when I talk about tilt, I talk about both people being on tilt, which means that we're not going to have a scripted conversation. But like for example, I've had people who um, have had 7 jobs in 7 years, and one of the things I go through is I go, well, or 10 jobs in 10 years, and I just go through each one. So what happened to this job? Well, the company closed. And what happened in this one? Well, uh, you know, um, we lost a contract. What happened in this one? I didn't like the coworkers. What happened? So they go through 10 reasons for why they left 10 companies, and then again, it's all about making yourself vulnerable and saying, well, let me ask you a question. First of all, if you were on this side of the table and you were looking at someone's resume who had 10 jobs in 10 years, we get life happens and things happen. But, what would you think if you saw 10 jobs in 10 years? What would you take away from it? We kind of put them in our position because we do want to be sent. Life happens, and there are times where you move, your spouse move, has a new job, you got to move. Doesn't mean anything necessarily, but when the pattern is that extensive, you got to just at least bring it up and have a conversation about it. And I've had some really amazing answers. I mean, one I remember vividly. One person turning to me, and I said that, look, 10 jobs, 10 years. I mean, I'm sure you sound fantastic, and we're still probably going to offer you the job. But I just want to understand this. How would you digest this if you were sitting in my seat? And one of the most interesting answers I ever got was this from this amazing lady who said to me, I only wish I could go back and apologize, to my first 5, 10 bosses because, I mean, it was really kind of, you know, so because she just said, I just was in a position where I wasn't taking these jobs seriously, but I'm at a different place, which is really amazing because if someone has that kind of awareness of having 10 jobs in 10 years is excessive, and you can't explain all of them away by, the company closed, the company this. So you can actually get a really amazing answer to that makes you think, oh my gosh. So because it doesn't, we all grow. I mean, myself in my 20s versus now, it's we all grow, and you have to. We're all humans, and we all grow and mature, and we're at different stages in our lives, and you have to have that conversation.
Right. No, absolutely. Okay. So, how would you, when you've brought somebody on, someone's passed the interview, they've been interviewed by you, by other people in the interview process, and you've hired them. What steps do you take at the point of, through onboarding to reinforce this culture that we've talked about?
Well, one last thing we do before we hire them is we do one more thing that I think a lot of companies don't do. What will happen after the end of a very successful interview? What we tell the staff is says, well, listen, we really like you and we really want to move forward with you, but really it's not also about whether we think you're a good fit for us, but are we a good fit for you? And I think there's no way of you knowing that unless you get a window into what this company is all about. So I tell them, just for select applicants, what we offer is we offer an observation period where you get to come in, sit with the regular staff. You're not going to be interviewed, and you observe. You just sit in a chair. You can take notes, whatever you want, and you can see the culture. You can see if the employees are happy. You can see, what kind of environment it is. And it's optional. I just say, if we offered you an opportunity to come in and observe for an hour or two, is that something you'd be interested in, so it could help you make a more determined decision? Because the last thing we want is someone to take the job, show up and say, oh, this is not what I expected. Oh, this is completely different. And believe it or not, I'm amazed by how many people say, first of all, I don't recall anyone ever saying no, and I'm amazed by the number of people who goes, I've never heard of that. That's an amazing. I'm totally into that, especially when they realize they won't be interviewed. That it's not really another interview, but they can just sit there and ask the other employees, so what's going on here, and so the inside scoop that you would probably realize on your first day of work, you can realize before you accept the position.
It's
So that's
interesting. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. There was a company I worked at in my early 30s back in England who, I wouldn't say there was a massive drinking culture, but every Thursday night we used to go to the pub around the corner from the office after work and go for a few of those, right? And part of the interview process was that if we got a candidate at final interview to join us, they'd be asked same kind of thing. It wasn't mandatory. It was, hey, before we offer you, we're probably going to offer you the job. Before you accept it, so you can get a feel for who we are culturally. Why don't you come for drinks on Thursday night? We tend to go to, Clarence, I think it's called, around the corner. Why don't you come and join us there? And again, almost everybody, I can't remember anybody saying no, and almost everybody when we offered that to them, were like, no one's ever asked us to do this before, And it's such a great and also because it's almost like a soft entry for the team as well. Of this person's coming in, but they're not coming in suited and booted. They're coming in jeans and a t-shirt, whatever, and everyone's kind of hanging out, and it's a much softer way to inculcate them into the culture of the organization.
Right, right. Although one of the interesting byproducts that I have found is that even though they come in for an observation, it does give us a window into their world, so we can see them sort of how they kind of present themselves and conduct themselves, and if obviously somebody's coming in for the full hour and is just texting on their cell phone for the full hour or two, that's probably is going to give us some insight. Although, like I said, we don't interview them or monitor them, but occasionally we've had people who, just for whatever, I think they just realize it's not for them, and so that's good information to have.
Okay. So once they're in, okay, so they've accepted the position, they've started. What steps do you take, or what tools do you deploy, either yourself personally or through your team, to ensure that they're going to be to ensure they're set up for success?
Yeah, I think the first thing we have is we have a learning management software for their position. We have a cloud-based courses that they can take. So, we want them to first get as much information about their job and how to do it successfully. When you're first starting out, you have to retrain everybody or train every new hire, and often the same people have to go through the same material over and over and over. So we realize that if we make that a process and we make videos that everyone will see and content that everybody will see, that will give everybody a maximal chance for being successful based on having the knowledge. So that's, if someone doesn't, for whatever reason you forgot to explain this to this new hire, but you explained it to the other person, you may get different. So we try to at least get that out there, and I think a lot of people appreciate that. But I think more importantly, we sort of discuss early on the culture of being an owner versus just being clocking in, clocking out. Again, not in the first few months, but some of the tools that we give people is we have this thing called an end of day report for a lot of staff. And it's really a very simple, sometimes we use a jot form, or it can even just be an email, where they simply type up, what they did, not in a granular fashion, but, if let's say you're working from home, like a lot of people are working from home now, I bet a lot of people say, just send me a quick email what you got done today, because I'm not in your house. I don't know what you did, but we'd like to have an idea where you are with different projects. So instead of calling you every day and say, Susie, or Bill, it's 5 o'clock. How far did you get on this project? We don't have to have that interaction. You can just email us, and if we have any questions, yes, we'll have a discussion. But if we know where you are with things, it helps us. So one of the things we notice is that, as time progresses, the things that they get done and are focused on and the improvements they make, you know, it helps us understand where they are. The other thing that we do really that's kind of really novel is we have everybody in training fill an end of day report about the person that trained them or whoever was their trainee, and we have the person doing the training fill an end of day report about the trainee. So it's really kind of interesting because what we found is sometimes an employee would quit after 3 weeks. And when we said to him, well, why did you quit? He goes, well, Bill, the guy training me, was seemed too busy and didn't explain things to me, and you know, and but it'd be too late. So I mean, right? So if on day one they said, Bill was really busy, he didn't really take time to explain, we'd go to Bill and say, hey, Bill, what happened? This new trainee feels like there wasn't, and sometimes it would be a matter of just giving that information to Bill, or sometimes we'd have someone else start training them. But we caught it early. You do not want to wait 3-4 weeks. So this amazing, on your first day and while you're in training, you fill out a report at the end of the day, and it's very subjective. So, uh, what was your experience like with the person training you? What are some of the challenges you have? How are things coming? And you're amazed to read. Like some people say, I love this job. I can't believe this job. I love it. This is amazing. And then sometimes you get feedback like, the office was so busy. Nobody trained me at all today. And they were putting out fires. And you want to know that in real time. If you don't have that real time information, it's amazing the information you gather from that feedback. So those are the things we do at the onset. But eventually we have them do their own end of day report. And a lot of times we can see where they struggle. And the last thing we ask them to do is carbon copy us on any emails they sent out, or give us a copy of any emails received, because as they're interacting with different people, we can say, I know you just got an email from this company that said X, Y, and Z, and you responded this way, but you should know this thing about that company. You should really say this to them. So we can coach them even through their digital contacts with other people, and catch that early. Last thing you want to do is find out a month later, a new employee canceled the contract or canceled an order, if that makes sense,
Right.
or didn't understand what that email meant. And you think, well, that doesn't happen too often. You'd be surprised how often it happens.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
does that help you, or what
No,
do you think?
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Okay. So we are recording this in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had I mean, it's July 29th today. So we've really been in the midst of this for, well, what, 4 or 5 months now.
Yes.
So how has the pandemic affected or perhaps changed the way you hire and manage your team?
Well, I mean, it has been challenging. I mean, I know, like for one of our businesses, we actually have triple. We just are in the process of moving to triple the office space, and it's not necessarily because their business has tripled, but because of the social distancing that we want for staff and what have you. And we're actually looking to expand space. So that's just been more of a physical reaction. Uh, but in terms of hiring, I mean, one of the upside, unfortunately, has been we have a much deeper talent pool right now, because a lot of talented people, you know, um, were working for organizations that, for whatever reason, had to scale back.
Mm,
So I don't think we would have access to this level of talent normally, or at least at this level, so many of them.
right.
So I think that's been a plus in terms of talent acquisition.
It's interesting because when I've asked this question to other business owners, they've made a similar point, as in there's a lot more talent available, and that the quality of talent is high. But equally, there's also a lot of subpar talent that's on the market as well, which has in turn made that there may be more diamonds, but they are a wash of many, many, many more pebbles as well.
Right.
So, have you found that it's put more of a pressure on the kind of filtering at the beginning of the process?
No.
How have you dealt with that?
Well, I think I think the if you already had a great system in place, like I told you, sort of the list of deal killer questions and filtering by that, that still catches a lot. If you have had no system, if you're just rummaging through a stack of resumes this high and saying, okay, I'll interview this one, yeah, that's going to be even worse now because you just have more. But I think drilling down on your deal killer questions even more is really, really important. And by the way, when I say deal killer questions, I mean deal killer even for the person that they won't want this job. Maybe it's they want something close to work and we're 20 miles away from work. I mean, it really helps us to understand what they're looking for. So when we ask them, what are you looking for a job? They're like, well, I'm looking for something really close to where I live. Well, and then we say, well, we're 20 miles away from where they live. So I think it's just drilling down and tightening up the deal killer questions both ways. And if you don't already have a process in place to deal with deal killer questions, it's going to be very painful, very, very painful. So I think what we've done is drill down deeper into deal killer questions, but you still, because you want to, when you're doing an interview, you really want to be doing an interview with someone you think is already immensely qualified and that you think they have an interest in you, both ways. Otherwise, it's going to be very painful.
Right. Okay. And what would you say is the one interview question that you like to ask that you don't think many other people would necessarily ask, but for you, it's your ace in the hole?
Yeah. Um, we ask a bunch of uh, we ask a bunch of really crazy questions, but I think our approach is when we ask people, are you looking for a career? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking? Um, we sort of ask them. We sort of ask them to you know help us understand what's the difference between someone who is looking for a career or is looking to do a good job. And the way I would tell them is if you were hired tomorrow, think about the kind of product you would put out, right? Let's say we inked a deal right now. You're starting tomorrow, or what kind of product do you think you would put out tomorrow? Versus, if I said to you, listen, I'm better yet, instead of giving you the job, I'm going to sell you the company. Here's a piece of paper. You give me $1. I'm selling you the company. What kind of product would you put out, and would it be the same? Which is interesting because some people say, well, no, if you sold me the whole company right now, I would put out a completely different product. I'm not even saying more time. I'm just saying, I'd want to know every facet of, the most common thing is I hear, I'd want to know about every facet of your business. Even if it's not my department, I'd want to know about it because I'm the owner. And I say, so, but if you took the job, you wouldn't do that. I'm like saying, well, if you really want the sky's the limit, where you can make anything professionally and financially, my recommendation is you give us the same product as if we sold you the company. And I think that's what we're saying when we say the sky's the limit professionally.
Right.
Like if you come in, but I've had people tell me, well, no, if I own the company, by the way, a lot of times when someone makes a sort of a big mistake I say to them, let me ask you, that's an honest mistake. Anyone can mistake, but would you have made that mistake if you owned the company? And they said, well, no, if I owned the company, I would have double checked. But then I say, but just give me that give that to me now, even though you don't own the company. I'll give you a classic example. We had somebody who answered the phone, and they were looking to make an appointment, whatever, and they said, yeah, I'd like to make an appointment. Is this, you know, XYZ company? And my staff said, no, you've reached, it was one of our competitors. No, you've reached us. Oh, because, I was trying to reach XYZ company. And the staff said, oh, well, no, we're not that company. Thank you for calling and bye. And, okay, I mean, that screams out, I just work here, right?
Right.
And so I just asked that staff member, let me ask you a question. If you open a pizzeria tomorrow and you call this Susie's Pizzeria, right? And somebody calls you up and says, I have a large order of pizzas. Is this Domino's? You wouldn't, if you own, you own the business, you're not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, let me give you Domino's number. You've called the wrong place. Okay, right? You don't need special training.
It's just attitude. It's just attitude.
Do I own the company or not?
Yeah.
And so really that's what you're telling them, is say, that's the product we're looking for. And that's one example, but there'll be 100 examples of that where, someone can display if they're an owner, if they're giving a different product. Now, the most common question I get to that is, why should I do that? Why should I take this job and give that much of myself to this job? Well, one, we'd like to think that if you stay with us for any length of time and you give us that attitude, you're going to have to take a severe pay cut to go anywhere else. So it's not like just give. We want to give back to you. We want to make you successful. I think what you're early on is that it's not.
The line's gone a bit. We'll see if we can get a slightly better line. Are we? Hello?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear me. Yeah, you just kind of jumped around for a second. Sorry, you were saying.
What we're trying to explain is that there's a quid pro quo, that you're going to get something out of it if you act like an owner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the line's still not brilliant. One second. Bear with me just a second. Yeah, I think we're back. I think we're good now. Okay. So no, that's really great. Yeah. Okay. No, this has been really fantastic. So what's next for Dr. Baktari? What's coming up?
Are we online or offline?
Yeah, we're online. Yeah. We're still. Okay. So what's next for Dr. Baktari?
In terms of growth and hiring, or what do you?
No, as in, yeah. What adventures do you have around the corner, either for E7 or for any of the other businesses?
No, I think we're really a technology company. That's one of the turns we've made, a few years back. We're heavily investing in software development technology to reduce friction for our staff.
Jonathan, I'm gonna pause the recording. I've got a problem with my internet. Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna pause it, and we'll jump back in and I'll ask you the same question again. Just give me 1 sec, because I think we've got a problem with bandwidth here. Just give me just 1 second.
I'll just answer this call.
All right. Okay. Okay, so what's next for E7 Health? What exciting things do you have on the horizon?
Yeah, so we're investing in a lot more in technology. I think what we want to do is make life better for our staff, our clients, and provide efficiencies, not only in terms of growing the business, but also, making it easier for our staff to get the stuff they need done, and having it easier for our clients to, get the things they need. So improving that experience, that user experience and our staff experience, is where we think our growth is going to be, which means doubling, tripling down on technology and processes that help everyone. So that's really what we're focused on right now.
All right, great stuff. So how can anyone get any further information about you or E7 Health?
Yeah, they can connect with me on LinkedIn or send us an email at e7health.com, and we'll be more than happy to respond.
That's great. Okay, Dr. Jonathan Baktari, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. It was a pleasure.
Great stuff. Okay, and